The movie opens up with Russell Millings, a prisoner who's been locked up for 20 years. He often remembers his past and the crime he committed, but one day his thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a prison guard who tells him to hurry up because it's the day of his release. Hearing this, he begins packing his belongings from the prison cell, including a piece of newspaper. Millings is then given a pair of fresh clothes to change into, and after completing some paperwork he is taken outside the prison. In the next scene we see Millings getting a job for himself and working at a diner. He also manages to find himself a place to live in which at least has a TV. As Millings has been in prison for more than 20 years, he is far from the advancement in technology and has no idea about emails or the internet. He just spends his nights eating food and watching movies on TV. The following day Millings visits an officer who explains that reports should now be sent via email instead of in person. This means he will no longer be monitored closely and can live a life of freedom. The officer also mentions that after a month of monitoring his request for parole will be accepted and he will be on his own. Following this, Millings goes to an internet cafe where people find him interesting because he has never used the internet before. A helpful kid assists him in finding an article about his father's death from a heart attack in March 2001. However, while in the cafe, Millings forgets about his work and gets scolded by a supervisor for being late. After work, Millings goes to an amusement park to feel young again and plays different games. Sadly, he's reminded of his responsibilities when his job calls him back the next day. Later, Millings goes back to the coffee shop where the kid had previously made fun of him for not having a phone and an email address. However, when Millings mentions that he served 20 years in prison, the kid's attitude changes. He then offers to help Millings create an email account at night while working the night shift. Millings agrees to stay longer and take care of the diner. After locking all the other doors, the supervisor hands him the key to the diner's entrance and asks him to close it before leaving. Following this, Millings keeps on cleaning the diner, and when he goes outside to throw out the trash, he hears a baby crying nearby. After looking around for a while, he realizes that the sound is coming from a dumpster beside him. In a shocking discovery, when he approaches the dumpster, he finds an infant, a cute little baby girl in the garbage can. Without thinking twice, Millings takes out the baby from the dumpster and goes to the diner. There is a note attached to her which reveals her name to be Ella. Millings tries to call an emergency number but realizes that the counter at the diner is already closed, so with no options left, he takes the baby girl to his home. In his room, as soon as he places the girl on his bed, she begins crying. This goes on for hours, but Millings eventually finds a way to entertain her, prompting her to fall asleep. He then thinks of calling 911 to report the baby but changes his mind at the last second. Later that night, a couple of police officers arrive to check on him in response to the call he made before. They hear the baby cry but simply believe that Millings is the father, so they advise him on giving the baby girl a tummy massage. The next morning, Ella begins crying and Millings feeds her some milk cream. Following this, he goes to a nearby superstore in search of bottled milk, struggles to find it, so an employee takes him to the section where milk for infants is found. The woman asks Millings if his wife breastfeeds the baby. In response, he simply says no and leaves. Millings then hurries home to see Ella but accidentally drops all the groceries on the floor. To his surprise, upon returning, he finds Ella sleeping quietly without crying. Curious about the legalities of keeping a found baby, Millings goes to the internet cafe and researches about it. During this, he discovers that one should inform the authorities about the baby as soon as they find one, or else it will be associated with kidnapping. Despite knowing the consequences, Millings decides not to tell anyone and keeps Ella to himself. He then plans a family vacation with her and takes her to a beach. The two spend their entire day at the beach looking at the beautiful scenery and walking on the wet sand. However, upon returning home, Ella falls from the bed and gets slightly injured. This greatly unsettles Russell and he hugs her tightly. The next morning, Millings takes Ella to visit a doctor. When a hospital employee approaches Millings and inquires about the situation, he honestly reveals that he found Ella in a dumpster. Sadly, the employee reports the situation to the police as well as child welfare. In the next scene, the authorities arrive at the scene and begin questioning Millings. The baby is also taken away, possibly to a foster care. At this moment, we get to know that Millings has actually grown attached to the baby. Truthfully shares everything he knows, like where he found the baby and in what situation. Listening to his explanation, one of the officers hands him her card and asks him to call her if he gets any more information. The next day, Millings goes to work like nothing is wrong. However, while he's engrossed in his duties, a couple of investigating officers and his boss approach him. They ask him to show the dumpster where he found the baby. Feeling guilty, Millings narrates the entire situation but lies about the time when he found the baby. The officers who had already asked the manager of the diner know that he's been absent from work for a few days, and questioned him about his truthfulness. They also talk about his ongoing request for parole and suspect him of kidnapping the girl. After the officers leave, Millings' boss asks for the keys to the diner back, making him feel embarrassed. Millings cannot handle it anymore, so he quits his job. He then packs his things from the motel and decides to go back to his hometown in Casper, Wyoming. On his way, Millings remembers Ella and looks at a map she had bitten. At one bus stop he meets a girl who is upset because she lost her ticket. Feeling bad for her, Millings gives her a napkin to wipe her tears and make her feel better. At another stop, Millings goes to get some food for himself but does not have enough money to buy a proper meal, so he returns with only a packet of bread. But right then the girl from earlier approaches him with some snacks as a thank you gift. While eating bread he faces difficulty in swallowing it and the girl prevents him from choking on it. After this the two get along and Millings provides her with a mustard mayo sandwich. At first the girl makes fun of it but later enjoys having it. The two then share their food and have a great time together. Later they introduce themselves and we get to know that the girl's name is Diana, and that she's full of energy like a fire sign. On the contrary, Millings is quiet and humble like a water sign. The two talk about their favorite color movies and many more topics on the way. Later in the evening when they reach Denver, Diana gives Millings the address of her brother's cafe, saying she'll be staying there. They then shake hands before departing and Millings continues his journey alone. After that, a few hours later, he arrives in Casper and stays near the cemetery gate for the night. The next morning Millings goes to his parents' cemetery and expresses his gratitude to them, admitting how much he misses them. He cleans the place, apologizes to his father, promising to make positive changes in his life. He also thanks them for taking good care of him during his childhood. Then Millings rests by their graves, reminiscing about the happy memories they shared. Following this he runs his hand along his neck and notices that a key has been hanging there for a long time, recalling the key his father had given him along with the information about a safety deposit box. Millings wastes no time and heads straight to the bank. He explains the situation to the receptionist, mentioning his father and the box left for him. At first the employees doubt him, but after thoroughly verifying his identity they confirm his relationship and grant him permission to open the box. They also reveal that his father was a great customer to them. After this an employee accompanies Millings to the safe, retrieves the books and respectfully gives him some privacy. Once alone, Millings opens the box and finds a heartfelt note from his father expressing love and admiration. His father also mentions the valuable stamp collection he had acquired during Millings' childhood. The surprise brings immense joy to Millings. The letter concludes with his father's request for him to take care of himself and wishes him the best for his new life. Excited, Millings goes straight to the storage unit and finds a set of neatly stacked and arranged stamps. This delights him so much that he breaks down in tears. After 3 months, Millings visits the foster home and informs them of his